Fresh off 2 straight main event wins with no title shot, we have the second-ranked women's bantamweight, Ketlen Vieira, looking to make it another one. And she's won 2 in a row, taking on a fighter who's looking to go 5-0 in her last 5 fights. We have Raquel Pennington, the former title challenger. And for Pennington against Amanda Nunes, one of the more lopsided title fight losses that we've had. But she's continued to rebound throughout this career. And for Pennington, it's a steady Eddie approach. It's what we've known since she was on The Ultimate Fighter season, 17, all those years ago. And for Pennington, walk forward, march you down, head in your chest, really just dirty box you up against the cage. And that's how Pennington wins the majority of these fights. And for Vieira, we kind of bring it back a little bit. You look at the 5-on in, she lost to Irene Aldana all those years ago. She beats Sijara Eubanks in a fight where she wins the first 2 rounds, then loses the 3rd round in boxing quarters against a wrestler. That's not good. She goes out there and fights Yana Kunitskaya, and control time doesn't do you any good, so she didn't win that one. Beats Misha Tate in a very close fight. Most scored at 3-2 for Vieira. And then her last time out against Holly Holm, mostly everybody thought that she won. She ends up winning that one by split decision. Matt, on MMA decisions, 18 scored it for Holm, 2 scored it for Ketlen Vieira. And that's kind of why she's in this position. She fights 2 main events in a row. Here's your marquee chance to get that title opportunity. She kind of fought in a couple of duds, and now she's fighting Raquel Pennington.
You know what fight's probably going to end in a split decision that no one's going to agree with? This fight. It is weird because Ketlen Vieira at one point in her career, I thought it kind of left Raquel Pennington in her dust. And I know that might seem harsh, but they just seem like they were at very different stages in the division. The UFC was promoting Ketlen quite heavily. Pennington, and let's just be honest, had lost to a lot of the top fighters at that point, because the thing about Pennington is there's not a lot of question marks about how she looks against ranked opposition in the weight class. She has fought everybody who is ranked in this weight class for the most part.
I said The Ultimate Fighter 17. It was actually The Ultimate Fighter 18, but she's 11-5 in the UFC, and she had a performance bonus over Jessica Andrade that some people might forget about.
That was 15 years ago, so they could all be forgiven for forgetting about that. But for Raquel Pennington, it's weird. If Joe Rogan was commentating this card, he'd talk about how good her submission game is, because he'd be like, remember that Ashley Evans Smith one? It's not that great. Like, you did describe it well. Raquel Pennington is a decision fighter, but a striking version of that. Like, you see a lot of kind of lay and pray, if you will, a lot of really good wrestlers. Raquel Pennington's gonna hold and be bold, I guess. That could be her new game plan. But I just think Ketlen's the more dangerous fighter. Like, if this ends inside the distance, Ketlen could get an arm triangle, probably trips her down to the ground, could threaten with some type of submission. We just haven't necessarily seen that version of Ketlen Vieira for a while now. And it has been weird with her last 2 fights, like you said, getting ready for 5-round fights. It might bring out a different version of her, just going back to what she is more used to. Maybe we will see a little bit more uptick in her aggression, because when Ketlen's at her best, it's when she's going for a lot of takedowns. I don't like it when she's on the outside, kind of pitter-pattering, trying to box, because I think that's a position she'll struggle with against Pennington.
The last time I saw Ketlen Vieira fight with a bit of a mean streak was a fight against Irene Aldana. She went out there really mean, then she got caught by a check hook and she got knocked out. And so for Vieira, this recent stretch has been a little kind of eye-opening questionable. Now, Holly Holm, former champ. Misha Tate, former champ.
I don't think Pennington's going to L-step and crack her with the left
No,
hook.
and that's true. But for Vieira, the opportunity was there in main events against former title challengers to get a title shot. I don't know what the chances are that she gets a title shot off a win over Raquel Pennington. I guess with Durandamy taking time off, with Juliana Pena wanting a trilogy.
Yeah, maybe do Pena versus Vieira?
It's kind of a weird spot in this division's history. So you do look at it. I mean, Pennington, it is kind of walk you down, march you down, corner you in the octagon and get the chance.
Just
and
steady.
Think about it. This fight right here, I think if this was contested in a big arena, a T-Mobile, if it was in Brazil, if it was in Colorado, wherever, it would favor Vieira. This one's actually at the Apex. So, again, we got to pay for that $100 million facility somehow with fights like this. This is how... We have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt. Surprise to us, they are to you. I'm going to say over under 70% with the younger fighter Vieira here.
I think over, even though I'll disagree, but...
It is over, so 1,352 total votes, 75% Vieira, 85% by decision for the 25% that have Pennington, 89% by decision. Matt, for Pennington, I mean, she was able to go out there. She looked really good her last time out, and obviously in this 4-fight stretch, she's looked great. She beat Aspen Ladd. She beat Chasson by submission. She beat Kanzad. She beat Marion Renault. The closest out of all of those fights, I'd say, was probably the one that she had against Kanzad. Some people thought that Kanzad was on the winning end of that matchup. But in this fight, you think, yeah, it's going to be at distance. Vieira has success. If it's going to be in close quarters, Pennington has success.
I think if it's in close, actually, Vieira's going to have success because I think she'll threaten a lot more with her takedowns. Now, Raquel Pennington's not an easy fighter to take down, so I don't just think Ketlen's going to march across Habib above her head and slam her down. But on the mat, I definitely think Ketlen's the more dangerous fighter and definitely has the higher probability to get a stoppage that way. I know Pennington is not an amateur grappler by any means. You bring up the submission against Chasson. She looked great in that fight, and that was one where a lot of people wrote her off because Macy, for the peaks and valleys of her career, a lot of people thought she was going to have a decided striking advantage in that matchup, but Pennington was able to do what she always does, get really grimy, make it an ugly fight, and look really good once it hit the mat. So I've really just been spinning my own tires right here, trying to think who I'm going to pick.
I think
if
Vieira has Dede Pederneiras in her corner, and she has that Nova União connection right there, Vieira can get willed into a win against somebody like Raquel Pennington in a matchup like this. The thing that I don't like is Pennington is a below average striker, but below average in terms of the numbers as to her output. But she has really, really good defense. She shells up great. She walks people down. Pennington doesn't get hit a lot in her fights. In terms of, you want to talk negative striker, Ketlen Vieira is a negative striker in terms of strikes landed per minute to absorb per minute. Ketlen Vieira will kind of give one to take one to close her own distance. So you might like the defense out of Pennington. It is a really tough fight to try and get right down the line. I'm going to go with Vieira in the matchup, but if you took Pennington, I wouldn't be mad.
I don't think it's going to be a great fight, to be completely honest with you guys. Like, I really did think Ketlen at one point was going to challenge Amanda Nunes and fight for the title. Like,
it still could happen.
It still could, exactly. Like you said, she's, 31 years old, so not an old fighter by any means. Hasn't taken a ton of damage. She's been stopped a couple of times, but like you said, could potentially get to that spot. I just thought she would have done it by now. I also will pick Ketlen in this matchup, but it's a difficult one, because Raquel Pennington, if she defends the takedown, just pushes Ketlen up against the fence, like, there's not a lot Ketlen's going to be able to do from that range, so I'll agree with you in the Vieira pick.
Both of us going with Nova União's Ketlen Vieira to get the win in the matchup. Only a few fights left on this card. Some big-time ones, including Imavov versus Gastelum in that main event. You're going to want to keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.